Hey guys, Kyle McGee here, post Logan Paul KSI 2. Not going to do a breakdown of just their fight, I'll do a breakdown of the entire main card. So we started the night with a fight between BJ Saunders for the super middleweight, for his WBO super middleweight title, and Marcelo Caceres. It was a pretty uneventful fight for the most part. Wasn't bad, but it was, first couple rounds went to BJ Saunders. Wasn't the most inspiring performance, but his head movement and punches were more sharp. Then after around the fourth or fifth round is when Marcelo kind of started to gain some momentum, but then it finished with an 11th round TKO in favor of BJ Saunders. Before this fight, BJ Saunders was saying he wanted to be the next person to fight Canelo. He is now 29-0 with 14 KOs, so he's got the record. I don't know if this performance warranted a shot against Canelo Alvarez, but it's very possible that will be the next fight for him. I would maybe say he should get someone a little bit lower tier first, and then move on to Canelo, just because, he himself even said he didn't feel like this performance showed like a Canelo-worthy fight, but he still wants Canelo next, so we'll see what they do with that. After that, we had Devin Haney versus Alfredo Santiago. A lot of people thought this fight was going to be over pretty quickly, and then watching them skill set-wise, it definitely looked like it could have been. Devin Haney was just picking him apart in the early going. Santiago, I believe, won round two. Yeah, round two was the one I scored for Santiago. But other than that, he was just getting picked apart the early rounds. And then in round five, they had a wild exchange, an awesome ending to round five, actually. And it actually, with about 20 seconds left, there was a knockdown for Devin Haney where he knocked Santiago down. He got back up, and they continued exchanging until the bell. And then after that, we come into round six, and, he's freshly knocked down. But surprisingly, he showed no signs of being hurt, no signs of the damage, no signs of still being wobbly or anything. So, Devin Haney, unfortunately, wasn't really able to capitalize on that because Santiago recovered very well. And it was more of the same after that. Haney just landing more shots and, slipping and countering and blocking the shots of Santiago. In the latter half of the fight, it kind of fizzled out. It had really started to pick up steam around the middle half of the fight on both ends. And then near the end, it had fizzled out, and by the end of it, I had scored it 11 rounds to 1 with a 10-8 round, and the judges actually scored it all 12 rounds for Devin Haney. They scored it 120 to 107, so very lopsided fight. Like I said, Santiago was game. He had a lot of heart, and he kept coming, but he wasn't truthfully in that fight for a second. They asked Devin Haney after the fight about a potential fight with Ryan Garcia, and he says he would definitely love to have that fight, and he would like to see it in 2020, and if not, then in 2021. I absolutely would love to see that fight book next. I think that'd be a really good fight. And then we get to the interesting one, which was Jonathan Batista versus Nikita Bobby, I believe is how it was pronounced. And they were talking about, Nikita and how he's known for just swinging, like, really hard shots and getting people out of there early. And it looked like we were heading towards that. He dropped Batista with a right hand. And then when Batista did get up, he looked bewildered, and they came forward, and a shot landed in the back of his head. It didn't look anything wild, and he just face-planted and was definitely milking it and was basically acting like he wasn't able to continue fighting. And the commentators were even calling it looked like he was just looking for a way out. And it turned out he was, because then the round ended, the referee called for a break, and he charged forward and continued punching at Nikita. And then after the referee got in there and separated them, he threw a punch again, which resulted in a disqualification. He definitely just wanted out of there. I believe the ending was inevitable from that point anyway. So, take that what you will. And I had actually posted on my Twitter about it. I said, it's really sad to say, but the standard for Logan Paul and KSI really just got lowered, because people thought, that'd probably be the worst showcase of boxing on the card. And I'll get to that in a minute. But the Batista's actions, I felt like, really really lowered the standard for everything. Like, it was one of those where it's like, well, they can't possibly do worse than that, because that was just atrocious to watch. And, you know, it was a float fight. So they were either going to be after the main event or before it, depending on how time worked. Time was allotted to them that they were going to work before the main event. The reason I think it is so bad that they did that is because if they had to go on after the main event, people would have already tuned out. No one would have really watched the fight, and people would have been leaving the arena. That fight would not have gotten watched. So now he's got there, and packed house in the Staples Center, packed house. Everybody's still watching on DAZN because they're waiting for the main event, and that was what happened. And it just, I felt like he probably ended his own career as far as, you know, being in a big time show like that goes. That was his chance to show out, and he did the exact opposite of that, unfortunately. So before I get to the Logan Paul KSI fight, I kind of want to get to what the energy was like throughout the night. You know, they kept showing those two, and the crowd kept going crazy. Really mixed reactions every single time for Logan Paul, especially when they showed Jake Paul. There was really heavy boos, but every time they would show KSI, the crowd would go crazy. And that was interesting to me because these two fought the first time in the United Kingdom, and, you know, the crowd was, of course, pro KSI and was booing Logan Paul, but now you're in LA. This should have been a home game, essentially, for Logan Paul. It was anything but that. You know, throughout the night, they were showing all the social media stuff, which I knew they would, but what was interesting to me was just the energy in the crowd anytime either one of those two was shown. Then we get to fight time. You know, Michael Buffer's there. Let's get ready to rumble, which will never get old, and it's fight time. Round one starts, and the first thing I noticed right away is it was almost like the exact opposite of the first fight. The first fight they had, you know, Logan was swinging heavy shots early, but gassed out, and then KSI took over in the later rounds, which is what resulted in the draw. This time, however, Logan looked a lot more reserved. He looked a lot more patient, and what was surprising to me, especially given that he was working with, you know, Jeff Mayweather, was that KSI was just winging punches. Don't get me wrong, he was throwing some jabs and some straight punches, but more often than not, he was throwing like the most ridiculous looping overhand right and looping hooks. Every punch was he was just swinging wild. But surprisingly to me, Logan actually showed a very effective jab and surprisingly decent footwork. I wouldn't say it was, you know, fluid or, you know, like amazing by any means, but keep in mind, this guy's been training for a year. That was actually really surprising to me. And what was really surprising to me was that Logan, to me, looked like the better boxer, and KSI was just brawling. I wasn't expecting that. But round one was 10-9 to KSI for me. Round two was Logan started utilizing his jab a little bit more. KSI was continuing to swing wild, but was missing, and it was just, he was starting to look like he was getting tired. He was really starting to breathing hard, and Logan was just popping straight shots and using his footwork, which is when I really started getting surprised. I was like, man, you know, he's really utilizing a boxing strategy, and KSI is just winging it, trying to go for the knockout. It was very interesting to me, but yeah, the jabs alone, to me, gave round two to Logan. So then we get to round three, and this is where things started to pick up. So it was it was going the way every other round was going. You know, KSI was throwing the occasional jab, you know, was working his way inside and then winging wild punches, and Logan was reserved, throwing the occasional jabs and straight punches, maybe an occasional 1-2, but was really focusing on his jab, which is obviously the strategy that he and Shannon Briggs had worked on. He wanted him throwing jabs and 1-1-2s and 1-3-2s all night. You heard him in the corner throughout the night. That was what he wanted. They were drilling the jab, which, like they talked about on commentary, in boxing, you really only need a jab as long as it's a stiff jab. If it's a solid jab, sometimes that's all you need, especially when you got two inexperienced guys. If you get a solid jab, that's all you're going to need. But KSI ended up at one point threw an overhand right, and it looped, and it did catch Logan in the back of the head, and actually, well, not the back of the head, sorry, caught him behind the ear and dropped him. It was ruled a knockdown, and then, you know, they got back up. He seemed okay, and then near the end of the round, he got a slip. Logan slipped, I mean. And obviously, KSI scored a knockdown. That round was a 10-8. Then we get to round four, and here's where my opinion about the fight definitely changes from what the referee said, and even the commentators seem to agree. So Starts off like every other round, but this round, Logan's starting to pick up the action a little bit more, and he finally starts throwing his uppercuts. And when he does, he rocks KSI with one of his uppercuts. And then you see he's hurt. He unfortunately grabbed him by the head and threw a few more uppercuts, but I believe KSI was on his way down at that point anyway. But unfortunately, on the way down, he threw a punch while KSI was down. It didn't even look like it really hit him, but again, that's not acceptable. But the reason, in my opinion, from the referee changes is, he calls time, which is fair. There was some fouls that occurred. Keep in mind, these are inexperienced boxers. We saw Conor McGregor throwing, who was an experienced fighter, but not a boxer, throwing some illegal stuff during the Floyd Mayweather fight. But we get that, and then after he has let KSI recover, he pulls Logan Paul over and takes 2 points away. No warning, and takes 2 points away for it. The commentators were bewildered that he took 2 instead of 1, and the Hall of Fame ref they had said that, you could argue that 1 point should have been taken away. There was no reason for 2 points to be taken away. You could have even argued with giving him a warning. Considering their inexperience, he said he would have probably given him a warning or just 1 point. But 2 points were taken away, and Logan was awarded a knockdown. That means that Logan Paul had that knockdown, but the round was still 8-8. So that was where I disagreed with that. I felt like 1 point was probably all that was needed, and it should have been 9-8. So at this point, I had it 2 rounds to 2, but keep in mind, Logan lost a 10-8 round and then only won one of his rounds 9-8 because of the point being taken away. That's if I would have scored it that way, but unfortunately it was 8-8. So then at that point, Logan is now down. Instead of being down 1 point for having the point taken away, he's still down 2 points from the 10-8 round. So now at this point, you realize unless he gets another, knockdown and gets a 10-8 round, the best he can hope for is a draw. So you go into the 5th round, and Logan is really opening up in the 5th round. He's throwing a lot of jabs, he's throwing a lot of crosses, hooks. He's just really opening up his punches, and KSI looks exhausted. He still looks wobbly on his feet and is just winging wild punches. It was a round that was easily won by Logan Paul, 10-9. So at that point, I have it 46-45, and I go, oh no, here we go again. Final round happens, and it was more the same as the entire fight was. KSI throwing the occasional jab and then winging his punches like crazy, and then Logan throwing the crisp, straight strikes. Into the round, I honestly scored it for Logan Paul. And I felt like, well, here we are again. It's another draw, 55-55. And to me, it should have been 56-55 because he should not have had 2 points taken away. So as someone who does not really like Logan Paul, to be 100% honest with you, just given all the stuff, but I at least respect that, he's trying to turn his life around. He's trying to move on from all the negative publicity, but never really been a fan of the guy. I was actually genuinely upset about the 2 points being taken away because I was like, man, this guy is trying to redeem himself. This was the perfect chance for him to redeem himself. He gets 2 points taken away, and to me, the fight's going to be a draw because of that, and he should win, is how I looked at it. So then the judges' scorecards were announced. The first judge scored it 56-55 in favor of Logan Paul. I said, oh, hey, that's how I think it should have been scored. That's interesting. Next judge scores it 57-54 in favor of KSI, which I thought was odd. But, there were some rounds that were fairly close, like the last round especially, you could have scored it in favor of KSI. So that I actually felt like that was fair. No harm, no foul there. I understood that scorecard. And then I heard 56-55 for the winner from the United Kingdom, KSI. Don't truly agree with that outcome. But congratulations to KSI on that. Both guys after the fight were super respectful of each other. They shook hands, put the beef behind them. Their coaches even shook hands and were like, hey, we're all good. When interviewing KSI, he talked about how it takes a big man to step in the ring, and he appreciated Logan because Logan brought the best out of him, and Logan thanked him and said the same. They asked Logan if he would like to do it again. Logan said yes, which brought a chorus of boos from the crowd, and KSI quickly interjected and said, no, we're done with this now. I'm moving on. It's done. And while I didn't agree with the scorecards, I wholeheartedly agree these two guys need to move on from this. It's done. It's over. You've had a clear-cut winner. We're good. JJ, aka KSI, had mentioned to him, hey, maybe you should work on, I think you should go to MMA. You've got your wrestling. I think that would work really well for you. And he even made the joke about, I think you should fight CM Punk. I think that'd be hilarious. Watching Logan Paul in this fight, while it was just simply boxing, I will say, yeah, Logan Paul would absolutely wreck CM Punk. But that's neither here nor there. So Logan Paul announced he plans on continuing his boxing career, and KSI plans on doing the same. So good for them. They found what they seem to have as their calling in life, and I hope it works out for both of them. My opinion on the fight is that it was shocking to me to see that Logan was actually what appeared to be the better boxer, and KSI was just brawling. That truly wasn't what I was expecting. I was actually expecting some sharp boxing out of KSI, because he has stated in the past that he wanted to go professional. Even before the stuff with Logan Paul, he wanted to go professional. He wanted to take the first Logan Paul fight, beat him, and then he wanted to go pro. It ended up being a draw. He goes pro, and they have a rematch. So now he's a licensed professional boxer, and he wants to continue that. So I expected to see him looking like a sharp boxer. I did not. I don't know if his strategy was he thought he was going to just knock Logan Paul out early without the headgear. I don't know what the deal was, but he was just winging punches all night. Logan was really working on the jab and his footwork, which really showed me like the difference in how they were trained. Shannon Briggs definitely tried to turn Logan Paul into a boxer, is what I found interesting about that. But yeah, this was an absolute media circus. It was absolutely crazy. You could tell from the energy in the building and the online presence. This thing was absolutely nuts. I was actually thoroughly impressed by the show. I was thoroughly impressed by both guys. Like I said, KSI surprised me by just winging punches, but I was still impressed with him because, it takes a lot of guts, and the fact that he got up from that knockdown and continued going says a lot, because he was very wobbly. Same with Logan when he got knocked down. So I know a lot of people have a lot of strong feelings about these guys, and I'm sure that any comments I receive on this video will be showing that, but I did feel like it was important to discuss this. If you watched the fight, let me know what you thought about it. If you didn't watch the fight, let me know why you didn't want to watch it, or let me know what you think about it. I'm sure you guys are going to have varying opinions on things, because I know how polarizing these two were, and that's why I wanted to watch it and why I wanted to cover this. But I do believe it was a good night of boxing, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. I wasn't expecting to. I really was expecting this review to be me kind of just poking fun of them, at least partially. I figured, maybe the first 2 rounds they'll look good, and then they would just look sloppy, but both these two looked like they had taken it seriously, and I actually found it to be thoroughly entertaining. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. There will be more to come. Please be sure to like, comment, subscribe, and make sure you check out my Instagram and my Twitter. Both of them are at KyleMcGee_BJJ, and I will put that in the description below as well. Let me know what you'd like to see, guys would like to see in the future, and please just continue to tune in. Thank you guys very much, and I'll see you soon.